Good evening. I'm going to wait a minute and see if anybody comes on before I start the webcast tonight. I'm going to explain some things tonight. And it all ties in together with this Watts case. Hey, Christy. Okay, this is about. All right, it's crazy how this all ties together. You know how I told you last year when all this was going on, Christy, how this was tied spiritually. This Watts case, this Nicole Kessinger, and this Watts case. Uh-oh. It's saying nobody's on now. Did you fall off? Are you still there, Christy? Give me a thumbs up if you are. My light is still on, so it's showing I'm still on. So I'm just going to continue to go. So anyway, oh good, okay. Yes, in Denver, Colorado, yeah. So it's crazy because okay, anybody that gets on, if you can give a thumbs up or just like say where you're from or what country or what state or whatever, just so I know you're there because it's not showing that really anybody's watching. But I'm gonna kind of get into this a little bit because it has to do with actually the name NIKKI. And I'm gonna get into first about some Freemasonry stuff. And I just said secrets revealed, because it is all related. I think that this Watts case is higher up. I think, I mean, no, trust me when I tell you, the Freemasons, they pretty much, they do run things, but there is, I mean, Aleister Crowley, and Ron L. Hubbard, and their mutual acquaintance, which I've gone through this in the past in a video, who actually, Barbara Bush's mother, who was Pauline Pierce, went to stay with them and they did some sexual magic. And so Pauline Pierce comes home and has been with Crowley and the other guy's name. Gosh, I'll come back with it and I'll write it at the bottom or something. But anyway, they did this sex magic, and Barbara Bush came like 8 months later, 7.5 months later, after Pauline Pierce came home. So Barbara Pierce was born, and her mom was married to a banker, but she did indeed go and stay where they were staying during that time, and they were practicing Thelema and that particular occult practices that have to do with sex magic. And that's a deep, deep hole. But basically, I want to explain that the one reason that I know a lot of this stuff is because I come from a family of very, very, let's just say everybody, just about every man and almost every woman on my dad's side of the family were into Freemasonry and the Eastern Star. And I think some of my cousins and other people got involved in the DMLA, which I did not, thank the Lord. But my father, my grandfather, my grandfather's brother, I mean, I could just go on and on. My uncle, he's a Shriner. So you have to be a Freemason first. Before you can become a Shriner, you have to become a third degree Freemason, at least, before you can even become a Shriner. Okay, well, then we've got the 31st, 32nd, and 33rd degree. And it's not until you actually get to those levels do you understand. Is it buffering? Uh-huh. Well, right now, in the name of Jesus, I just come against any kind of principalities at work right now, coming against this from coming out or going forth. Lord, I ask you to cover this broadcast. I ask you to let me speak the truth plainly and let me be accurate and concise so people can understand what I'm saying. Lord, let the truth come forth and let everybody who has an ear let them hear. All right. I hope that clears up. Let me know if you can, if it's still doing it or not, um, or if you can hear me clearly. But anyway, I have like I when I was younger, of course, had no knowledge of what any of this was. I know my family on my father's side did not go to church. I'm just going to tell you, my maiden name is Mason, Mason. Um, my grandfather's name was George Mason, and they are all from Virginia. So, um, very, very high ranking Freemasons. Um, I have never taken any kind of oath of Eastern Star or Freemasonry or any secret society, so I am not breaking any code or any rules by what I'm saying tonight because I myself have never joined. Okay? And my father has passed away now. My grandfather is dead. Pretty much everybody in my family who was so heavily tied in this have all passed away. And that's not an unusual thing um, when you get out of it and you expose it for what it is, which my father did get out of it. And so, you know, anyway, I have a memory in it. For the longest time, I really thought it was some kind of a nightmare. And I've never really talked about it a whole lot except for to my husband. One time to a counselor, um, but I don't think they believed me, honestly. So anyway, um, okay, I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And the particular lodge that my family was a part of, which I didn't know then, and I just found this out after I recovered these memories and after I questioned my father about it and like told him what the inside of that lodge looked like and, you know, asked him questions. So I remember I don't even remember who I went with, and that's the thing. I remember it was night and I remember going in and there was a black and white check floor when I first walked in the double doors, all the glass and everything, you can't see through it. It's like a real foggy kind of glass, but you walk in and there's like this huge hall when you walk into it. And there was like these booth type things, almost like a pew in a church service or something, just kind of up against the walls. Um, and there was a water fountain, I think, in there. Um, and I remember there was one lady there, and usually, in Freemason clubs, there's not men that are allowed. So I don't know why she was there, unless it was to make me more comfortable. I'm not sure. And at first, I didn't even know if these were really my memories or not because it's hard to comprehend. But anyway, so I remember she came and gave me some Kool-Aid, like fruit punch, and like in a little like one of those little Dixie cups or whatever, that you used to have in the bathrooms in the '70s and the '80s that had the little dispenser or whatever, and I just remember drinking it, and I was sitting on that, like, little booth type thing, and I just remember, like, I fell asleep, like, I just remember getting drowsy, and I fell asleep. And the next thing I remember is I woke up, and I was looking up, and it was dark in the room, but I could tell there was paneling on the walls, like the old '70s kind of paneling on the top part of the walls, except up higher, there was all this gold painting and pictures and things, and, um, I saw these candles on these, like, tall candelabras, and now the candlelight was really, like, the only light that I saw, but there were, like, a lot of them around kinda like where I was, and, I remember, like, I'm pretty sure I was naked, but I remember if I might have had my dress on and it might have just been up. I'm not sure, but I just remember my butt feeling like velvet or a velvet feeling like that underneath my butt. And I was laying on this red velvet like covering. Um and so, like, the next thing I know, like, I felt like I went back out possibly, and then I woke back up again. But this is the weirdest thing. Like, I was up above myself looking down. And, like, I remember seeing men in black robes, almost like a judge would wear. Um, but their heads were not covered because I remember a lot of the men were balding because I was looking from the top. And remember, I'm like 5 years old at the most. Okay, five. And so or close to it. I think I was really four, but um, it was in the year of 75. So I think that I just had not yet gotten to five, but I was almost there. But I have an extraordinary memory. I mean, like I can remember things back from when I was like literally 2 years old. I'm not kidding. So anyway, I like woke back up and I was like floating up above, looking down. It was a weird, very weird experience. And I remember, you know how Dr. Phil's hair is, and I remember like several of the men's hair looked like that, and they were just like their heads were like down over my body. I couldn't see what was going on. And then I just remember going to sleep again. And then the next thing I remember is waking up in my parents' bed between them. I know my mom would never, she would not ever know anything like that or have any part of anything like that. And honestly, I really don't think my dad would either. And the weird thing is when I questioned him about this about a year before he died, and I asked him because I found his little fez, what not fez, that's my uncle's thing he wears on his head, but the apron, um, and his square and compass, and I think there was some gloves. I'm trying to remember because I was young. I was like probably 7 or 8. The weird thing is, like, I went in my mom and dad's room and went in his top drawer and I saw that. And something about it like made me freeze almost like in fright. And it was the weirdest thing. I don't know why that would happen, like a trigger or something. And I picked it up and walked into the den with it. And I was like, "What is this?" And my dad, like, just jumped up out of the chair, and he was never like that with me. Like, he never spanked me in his life. Like, but he grabbed that thing. I was like, "Don't ever touch this. Don't mess with this." And so, like, I was like, "Whoa," you know? I thought that was weird because already I'd felt triggered when I saw it, which is why I asked what it was. But when I asked my dad, like I said, a couple of years ago, um, and I kept asking him like what that particular lodge looked like inside. I remember the blue carpet. When you went inside the lodge in the room that I was in, even though it was dark, you could see, like around there, there was black and white checked floors again, like kind of in the middle, but then there was dark blue also in there on the carpet, and then seats or whatever over there, they look blue colored. Um, you could kinda see, with the flicker of the lights, and there was a lot, like I said, a lot of light is for it being candles. Um, but anyway, so when I'm asking my dad about what well, I started asking him actually a year before that. I was in the hospital and I started researching my family lineage. That's how some of this stuff, like, I connected it, but and whenever I pulled it up, of course, all this stuff comes up about Freemasonry because my family surname was Mason, M-A-S-O-N. So traced it back, and anyway, that particular lodge popped up as an advertisement. It was the weirdest thing. Um, so I asked my father, I was like, "Have you ever heard of such and such lodge?" And he said, "Yeah, that was the lodge that I used to belong to." And I said, "Yeah." And I started asking him about certain things about it. And he kinda changed the subject about it. He really didn't wanna talk about it, and he told me, he was like, "I haven't been back to that lodge since 1975 and da 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 da. So that again is another confirmation. It's weird. Like he was so like very I don't know, like he tried to defend like very defensive, that's the word I'm looking for. Um and like maybe he didn't know that went on or was gonna happen and something like that happened and maybe he never just went back. I don't know because now he's passed away and I really can't get all the answers that I'm looking for now. But I did get a lot. But anyway, so I asked him about it again one day before he passed away. I was taking him to get his eye surgery done. Um, and I was talking about it, and he was like, I promise you, I haven't been to that lodge since 1975. I don't want to have nothing to do with it anymore. Um, and this, that, and the other. So again, okay, so he did renounce it. He renounced Freemasonry because I told him after all that I had remembered, and he said that he doesn't know anything about that. So, like I said, it could have been my uncle, my grandfather. It could have been my grandfather's brother. They all were in the same lodge. So, I mean, seriously, it could have been someone else, and he could have found out about it or something. I don't know, but there was a reason that he left in '75. And I'm going to tell you, that side of my family has had, I mean, had money. But when it came to my dad, after he actually like stopped with that and, and renounced all that, it was almost like, I mean, it was like he had a black cat on him. It was like just constant trouble. He was an alcoholic. He died at a very young age. Um, there's real consequences that those oaths have, and it I just wish people would believe those that have been in it and those who are like their families are just so steeped in it that I mean, it's not just a fraternity. It's not just a business club. It's not. Okay, first of all, for the Eastern Star, I'm just going to tell you just look this up. If you look it up, it's the different colors of the rainbow, like the colors that they mean each thing on the five-pointed star, but if you look at it, it's a pentagram, and we all know what that is and what it symbolizes. And then in Freemasonry, most of our presidents have been Freemasons. And I'm okay. Now this is where I'm fixing to get into with case. Okay, so I have all this history and all this past. So I get saved and I get delivered, even though I'm from this family. And one by one, my family members come in and they start getting saved also. So then I ended up in the deliverance ministry. But I myself had to be delivered from this particular generational curse. So um, I have, and I'm so thankful for that. Um, that the Lord has taken that from me. Um, because I didn't even realize there was such a thing until like 4 years ago. So, okay, now Colorado is huge, huge Freemasonry territory. Just look up the Colorado airport, look up all the Masonic symbols in there, look up just the murals, just everything in that is just like symbol, 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 symbol. And if you know what to look for, believe me, you don't even have to know what to look for. You can still see it. But if you know what you're looking for, it will overwhelm you almost. Um, so they flew in and out of that airport constantly. Um, so with that being said, Nicole, Nick, NK, Nikki, um, she got this job. She did not work for Anadarko. She was she was contracted by them. So she actually was hired. And the weird thing is, like, but almost a year before this happened, this tragedy happened, She had started a search engine to look for Shanann Watts, and I believe Christopher as well. Um, but truly, I feel like almost with her, it's one or two things, and it could be both mixed together. It's almost like that Single White Female movie where that girl, like, honest to God, wanted to be like the other girl, and so she wanted to, like, take over her life, like a parasite or something, and I almost feel like that NK girl could possibly be similar to that. However, I really think it was more than that. I think there are occultic ties to this. Um, and there's a particular person on YouTube, and he's he has a fairly good following, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't have permission to, and I'm not going to do that. But I do watch him, and honestly, he is the only other person that I've found that has hit the nail on the head. Well, I'll just say this. I mean, it's the armchair detective guy, okay? So he's the only one who has brought this stuff out and nailed it on the head. And I just would like to say bravo for that and for not being scared and for not backing down off of it. Um, and in the past, I've uncovered some of this stuff in some of my earlier videos about the Watts case, and when we're speaking about Nikki and how she acted and those giggly laughs that she had that were so strange. That's almost like a disassociation disorder, or like acting like an alter, which is a child, which happens a lot if you're raised in a satanic ritual abuse situation, because children are made to endure lots of hard things over and over and over. And in my situation, where I have my memories, like, I truly believe that that only happened one time. Now, I have not gone to go into any regression type therapy or anything, because truthfully, what I do remember is enough, and I don't want to know anything more than that. If anything more than that happened, I don't want to know it. So, anyway, um, with her, there's something going on, because I'm just going to tell you, I have never heard of people being able to just completely drop off the map. I mean, just like off the radar, like no trace of them. And also, I don't know how far back people have been able to search for her history, even as a child, or how far back that goes. Because the name or the word Nikki is actually attributed also to Satan. Okay, so that just blew me away because of all the coincidences with this stuff. Okay, we've got this happened on the weekend that a particular thing takes place. And honestly, it's the craziest thing, because I literally just found out about this when it was going on, because I was studying the Manson murders, because it was like the 50-year cycle of that. And like the Holy Spirit had shown me, like, with just like 50-year cycles in the biblical, with the good things, that there's also bad things. And so that the things that were sown in 1919, which was with Crowley, and also in 1969, okay, and then again, then 2019, okay? Now, I know that this happened technically in 2018, okay? But, you know, our days are a little bit off than the original Hebrew calendar, or the original calendars. Our Gregorian calendar is just built on a different system. You understand what I'm saying? So, it might not be exactly 50 years to the day, but I'm gonna explain something that does happen every year at this particular time. So, and it might be within a day, within 1 to 3 days or 4 days from each other. Usually it has to do, with the moon and the celestial bodies when they do it, but it's the marriage of the beast and the bride, the marriage. It's in the law of Thelema, however you want to say it. Um, and Crowley supposedly married his girlfriend. I don't know if it was legit or not, but in a ceremony like this, in a ritual ceremony like this. Okay, so we've got Nicole. Nikki was looking for wedding dresses. He's thinking, oh, she's want to get married um, to old Chris Watts, but he was not even close to divorced yet. Okay, not even close to divorced. And even she knew that herself. She would not be looking for wedding dresses yet for marrying Chris whenever he's still married to his wife, living in the house with her. Um, I don't know. There's other people on here, but they haven't like said anything, so I don't know. If you're watching, if you'd like to hop on and just say hi, just so we know you're here, because I see numbers up there, but I don't know who all's watching. I'm curious too. Um, but anyway, so think about this for a minute. Um, the name Nikki. Think about Prince's song "Darling Nikki." All right, all right. This is not for children. I've already said that, so this is not for kids. I'm going to talk about the lyrics to "Darling Nikki" because it talks about, I met a girl named Nikki. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby, doing what with a magazine. Okay, and then it talks about how he goes back with Nikki and he signs his name on the dotted line. Okay, and Nikki started to grind. Okay, now I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what Nikki could mean. And then I thought about the name Scott Reich was talking about the case today. I don't know who that is. Who's Scott? Who's Scott Reich or Reich? I'm not sure who that is. Um, but the Nikki. Okay, it came to my mind, Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue also, which we know they've got pentagrams and all kind of stuff. They say that, they're into that. Sounds like Nikki, and it's spelled Nikkisix. Okay, we know what six means. Um, Sounds like, okay, well, I think I'm gonna look into this further. So, um, I came up with Nicki Minaj. Also, I can't say that. Arish or Reich. I have to look that up because I'm not sure who that is. I don't know. I'll have to look. Honestly, I have not been lately looking at a lot of this stuff or anything about this stuff in a while because honestly, I've had so much going on in my house. It's been like full speed ahead, Christy, because I've told you some of the stuff. Okay, so we got Nicki Minaj, and then we got I'm trying to okay. Let's put it. Okay, this is interesting. Okay. Beelzebub is derived from the Canaanite god Baal. Nick appears to be derived from Nikot, the ancient Saxon water beast god. In German, Nix or Nixie is Nixie is a nymph, a goblin or water spirit. Old German Nihas or Nihus, Nihhus. I'm sorry, I'm butchering probably the pronunciation of these things. Um, which means it's an old German word related to Old English Nick or a sea monster. Isn't that interesting? Um, And actually, in Revelation 2, this is the weird things. The Bible actually talks about the Nicolaitans, however you say that, is the Nicoletions. God hated their doctrines, their deeds, the things that they were into. And you can look at that in Revelation 2 if you'd like. It's in the Bible. And also, the name Old Nick is from Old Antiquity, the name of the devil in medieval plays. How interesting is that? Because think about it. What if the reason we can't find this woman is because that is a assumed name for a purpose? Because she was studying them a year in advance. And the thing is that this particular ceremony I'm talking about, they do prepare for it quite a while beforehand. I mean, like you have to go through a lot of things to take part, I think, in this ceremony. And um, he said, and I didn't even know this, but the other channel that I was talking about even said that he found out that there was that particular ceremony. I already knew it was going on at this time because I already had connected that, like I said, with Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate and those murders in 1969, when Sharon Tate was pregnant. Roman Polanski had ties with the Westerfield House, which you can look that up, and it is in San Francisco. It used to be the Russian embassy. Kenneth Anger lived there. He was an occultic filmmaker. Anton LaVey was a regular stay there. Bobby Beaujolais, who ended up being with the Manson family and being one of the first ones arrested for murder, and also, and there's proof of this because I wouldn't look it up, but there are movies that Anger made because he was an occultic filmmaker. But Mick Jagger with the Rolling Stones, like Cass Elliot, Janis Joplin was there. Um, what's his name from the Beach Boys? The one that actually Manson kind of clung to. Um, if anybody knows, write it in there because my mind is drawing a blank. But oh my goodness, Dennis. I think it's Dennis Wilson. Was that his name? Anyway, because this is a little bit before my time. But it's weird because I was named after Sharon Tate. So maybe that was why I was drawn to this. I don't know. It was weird. But to get back to my family and the things that, that they were into, I was also like put in pageants, beauty pageants and modeling and all that kind of stuff, like at around age 4. And it was literally every weekend of my life until I got pregnant and got married and moved out. I was forced to have an abortion when I was 14. Um, and I'm literally being forced. I did not want to. I cried and I got upset and that did no good. And now I'm not saying that my family were practicing occultists at this time. They was very worldly. And my mother was living vicariously through me. And I really believe that she was just being controlled because she didn't understand herself what was going on. Because I've mentioned before in my other testimonies that I've put on here that I modeled all that time and that I ended up getting contracts offered to me from like literally 10 different modeling agencies. Um, I don't know that number. Let's call it back. All right. Anyway, so it's just kind of strange the way that Ephesians 6 talks about we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and wickedness in the high places, with princes and rulers. You know what I'm saying? Like not physical people, but spiritual. And the thing of it is that we need to understand that, yeah, God has a plan for our life. From the moment we're conceived, He has a plan for our life. But the enemy does too. And the enemy is not stupid. You know what I'm saying? He knows exactly what he is doing. Um, his system is very similar to God's system because he created it to be that way because he copied God. Satan is an imitator. That's all he can do. But once again about the name Nikki. Okay. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Niccolo Machiavelli. I know some people have heard of the Machiavelli or the Machiavellian belief system, because of I think it was Tupac Shakur. I don't know. I didn't listen to him, but I do know he was into that. But basically, he was called Old Nick, and he was known to be a very sadistic Italian tyrant of a leader. Um, and it's so interesting, all this stuff. Um, he wrote a book that most of our presidents have read and they go by, and it's actually called The Prince. It was written in 1513 by Niccolo Machiavelli, and it just talks. It basically is about the ends justifying the means. So this ties back again to the Freemasons because basically that's how they see things. Like order out of chaos. It's called ordo ab chaos, chaos in Latin, but it's order out of chaos. In other words, they cause the chaos, then they come in with the solution to make it look like they've come up with the answer for it. And now listen, I'm going to tell you right now, most people in the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry have no clue about this stuff that I'm talking about. Like, you have got to be pretty much on up there to know a lot of this stuff because um I mean, like you'll be disemboweled, all kind of crazy stuff like that if they break their oath, you know. Um and if you read, if you can find, get your hand on an original copy of some things from the Freemasons, then you would see what I'm talking about. Uh it's not a innocent group of people just getting together and talking business is what I'm saying. Now some of the lower lodges, like I said, yes, that's a lot of what they do, but there's some other stuff that goes on in there too. And honestly, the reason they don't talk about a lot of it is because they're embarrassed because of a lot of the stuff that goes on. And that's how a lot of things are run because people hold blackmail over other people. And also the brotherhood that goes along with this is it's kind of like the fraternal police, or, you know, and police are involved in this a lot too. But it's like a fraternity, and they do say they're supposed to cover another fellow brother, even before they would anyone, even if it came to breaking the law. That is how important it is. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, you're never going to get to the bottom of anything that Freemasons may have control of because their whole system is set up to protect, you know what I'm saying, one another and the top especially. It's kind of like a beehive almost mentality. Um but um if you are in Christ Jesus, I mean truly in him, I'm going to tell you that the enemy has no hold over you, and these generational curses can be broke off of you and your family, and you do not have to be subject to that. And honestly, I would ask anybody. I would say because um, it's more prevalent than you think. I hate to say it, but there are so many Freemasons sitting on the pews in so many churches, and they think because their motto is, "Oh, takes good men and makes them better. It makes good men better." Okay, that's what they say their logo or their motto is or whatever. Well, they basically take men and they turn them into Luciferians is what they do. Now, like I said, I'm not going to say that every Freemason is bad or that they have bad intentions because, like I said, on the lower level, really, they only know so much. But when you get on up there, you know, you get enlightened. And again, speaking of enlightenment, um, going back to the thelema and all of that, there's a cake called the Cake of Enlightenment, and it is actually made with bodily excrements. That's disgusting, I know. And I'm not going to talk about which ones. You could probably guess the worst ones you can think of. And you know, they take this cake and they partake of it almost like a holy communion. They honestly is like a mirror image of what God's kingdom looks like. And when I say Christian, understand I am not talking about Roman Catholic, um, because though to me, in my mind, that is not Christianity. And if you look and see what the Vatican practices, and if you look and read the Bible, is very contrary to one another. To For a man to go and live like that and deny himself of things normal, like, in fact, one of the first things the Lord told Adam and Eve is to go forth and multiply, go be fruitful. Well, they're not gonna do that if they're a monk or a nun in a monastery, because they're not supposed to be having sex. And that leads me to another question: why is there an age of consent in the Vatican when everybody in there supposedly took a vow of chastity? There should not be a reason for an age of consent. And by the way, it's like really, really low, like 12 or 13, maybe 14. It's really low. Um, and they have their own, like, everything set up, their own banking, their own everything. So it's like its own little country in there. So, and for the Vatican to talk about walls are bad and walls shouldn't be built and walls this, walls that. What's around the Vatican? What is built around the Vatican? Huge walls. Wow. How hypocritical. Anyway, back to this case. There are so many things that are so messed up, and I don't understand what's going on. Um, I know it's one thing or the other. I mean, either she truly was just a psycho and got involved in a low level Crowleyan cult that practices these things because she was into yoga, she was into a lot of different things, and Chris said himself in the book that there was some dark things that went on in that apartment of hers, or her friends were into some really dark things that he would take to his own grave. And I'm gonna say something. I'm about to get off because I did not really want to go over 30 minutes because people's attention span are short. These days they don't like to watch stuff for a long time. But think about this for a minute. All right. She was looking for that wedding dress. It was right before this particular thing happened on the 12th, I believe it was August the 12th, if I can remember just off the top of my head, which I'm talking about that ritual, the Beast and the Bride, which took place close to their house. Like I told you, that I found that out through the other YouTuber on here. I already knew about the ceremony, but I didn't know that they held one right there in Colorado. I didn't know that. So that was news. Um, and it was in close proximity. And that just happened to be the day that she just couldn't remember where she was. But then her father vouched for her and said that they were at the museum together. So this very well could be a generational thing, because that is not uncommon. Um, when you're talking about the stuff I'm talking about, there's a lot of generational things. And kids, a lot of times, if they grow up in certain situations, they just adapt and they think that that's normal because that's their normal, you know. And sorry, I was trying to put my hair is bothering me, but anyway, so, like I said, and then there could be the fact that she is in a huge conspiracy cover up. And this is the weird thing, like, to take her eyes off of what's really happening in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like an illusionist might do. They'll show you a sleight of hand trick and show you their, left hand while their right hand is doing something else, kind of like that. And for people to be paying attention and think about everybody that's wrapped up in these cases. Um, but that she was just used, what I'm saying, by a cult, and she was the honey trap, if you know what I mean. Like that Children of God cult from the early 70s, and I don't know when it stopped, but I know that Rose McGowan and I think River Phoenix was raised in that. But uh, basically, they called it sexy fishing or something like that, flirty fishing or something. And it's where women would go out and entice men to come into their cult by having sexual relations with them. And once again, just like Crowley, kids were urged to have those kinds of relations with adults, with each other, just really sick stuff. And Alistair, I don't know if I've already said this out of my name, out of my in this particular video, but Crowley said in one of his writings, and I'm thinking it might have been just the Book of the Law. It could have been in the Thelema one, but it talks about the perfect specimen for a particular ritual would be a boy, and this is to have intercourse with, would be a young boy, preferably around the age of 5 years old, and that he must be of high intelligence, okay? And they believed in sex magic in a way that they could almost vampirize the essence of another person through that, and especially a child like that. It's just really sick, and I don't like talking about it. It's so disgusting. But I think people need to know this because we have honestly been in the dark for so long about these things going on because people are scared to talk about it. Well, I don't really have any family anymore. So therefore, like if it's just me, then you know, I mean, I need to tell it because it could help save a kid. It could help save a person. You know, I'll tell you right now. Look up Lee Bryce. Look up Kathy O'Brien, Ted Gunderson. There are some people that have been willing to stick their neck out and risk their lives and telling these stories. But I'm going to tell you something else, and you just need to look into this with the red handkerchiefs and people hanging themselves on doorknobs, and how many people actually have done that, and how they're connected, how they're all connected, like Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, um, also even Chester Bennington, and mm, the other one, um, oh my gosh, I can't believe my mind went blank. His best friend. One of them was in Soundgarden, and the other one was in Lincoln Park. So it was Chester Bennington, and oh god, the other name escapes me. Anyway, they both got Chris Cornell. Okay, they both got they both. They said it was suicide, but they both got hung, or they both were hanging from a doorknob, like Kate Spade. Well, I know at least one of them was by the doorknob, supposedly. Possibly the other one, like Kate Spade was hanging from a doorknob, like um Anthony Bourdain was hanging from a doorknob. Just I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, you just can't. And people that don't want to believe this or whatever, that's fine. Don't believe it. I mean, it's not gonna I guess it's not gonna make much difference in your life whether you believe it or not, unless somebody like this targets you or your family. And this is my concern, and this is what I want to say. All right, everybody's like, "Well, we can't prove that NK had anything to do with this. We can't prove, we don't have proof." And anyway, she didn't kill anybody. We don't have any proof she killed anybody. Well, there's a lot of proof and evidence that she was manipulative and manipulating him and his mind. I mean, he went from loving and being in love with his wife, it seemed like, to almost despising her in just little to no time at all. They were trying to have a boy. She got pregnant, and he should have been so excited about that because all he said he wanted was a boy. Um, but literally, um, it's almost like this family was targeted for one reason or another. Maybe it has to do with connections where, I'm not sure. Like maybe it was just they were looking at people that worked, where she worked or wherever she was at or was able to have connections. I'm not sure. But she was definitely playing head games with him. And I'm going to tell you, like, one particular thing is like huge to me, and I think that this was some of the catalyst of why he felt so compelled, not just being possessed, because trust me, I definitely believe that he was possessed. That doesn't give him the right to do what he did, and that doesn't give him an excuse. And he is exactly where he needs to be. And I'm not saying anything like that or that he is not culpable, because he is. He chose to have this affair, which opened the door for all this stuff to happen because of what she was involved in, and he wasn't covered either. I mean, he was sitting there throwing up devil horns every time you turn around, and just like lived for Metallica. Which I mean, listen, I'm sorry, but if you go listen to their music, it's very, very dark. And then the Battery song by Metallica that she just happened to want to know the lyrics to, supposedly. Um, it just all falls into place, and it's just messed up, and But this is how I know she was kinda playing games with him, because a woman okay, she will try to make a guy jealous, to see how much he cares about her, and when he was at her house, alright, remember whenever the first time he supposedly spent the night there and, his wife, Shanann, kept calling or whatever, and he had to go outside and talk to her, and then he ended up leaving because he thought she would get mad, and Nikki went off the ledge, and he had to talk her down, and she sent him this crazy video or whatever, and I think that might have been the first time that she came to his house. I'm not sure, but there was some crazy stuff going on. And then, so she, I think, realized, I mean, he is definitely, like, attached to his wife more than I thought. If he's worried about, making sure she doesn't know where I'm at, that doesn't, to me, sound like a man who's ready for a divorce who or wants to leave his wife. And this was in the beginning of this particular that was, like, in the beginning of their sexual escapades or whatever. Okay? So then when the Rockies game goes on or whatever, she plays with him and tells him that she's got some eHarmony dates or some kind of some date things that she set up, and they never came. And truly, that is just classical maneuver for a woman to try to trap a guy or to make them think that, hey, well, another guy's gonna be interested in me if you don't step up. If you don't take care of me, then somebody else is gonna do it. And I mean, that is just so, so obvious to me. Um, it was just to make him jealous and to make him think he wanted her more. Because a lot of times, if nobody else seemed to want her or care, if she's, if whatever, he might just be like, and not be as interested. But that is a manipulation. It is. And um, so I think she was kinda being passive aggressive in that, trying to say like, "Oh, well, I think you need to fix things with your wife," like when he was leaving to go to North Carolina, and I think she was saying that to him to try to make him, like, psych him out before he even went, like, "She's telling me to work things out with my wife. She wants me to work things out with my wife. She's wanting to get rid of me," and, like, it brings up abandonment stuff and all kinda crazy stuff. So it's just interesting to me that she just, first of all, pretended like she had some dates coming when they were supposed to do something, and then he said, "Well, oh, well, they just didn't show up." Well, they didn't show up probably because it was a while along, and there probably was no dates that she was supposed to have that didn't show up. That was just manipulation, and, again, it was manipulation for her to tell him to, um to go work things out with his wife in North Carolina. Believe me, she did not like the fact that he went to North Carolina, at all. And I think that that really, I mean, when she was talking to the police and stuff, if you listen to her, she had such disdain in her voice for Shanann. Even the children, I mean, I can hear it in her voice, and you can hear she goes really monotone, like a very flat affect, like, yes, I know, but talking like that. And then she'll go, when she was talking about the kids, she was like, how could you do that? They're so small, and that whiny voice that just going back and forth to all that stuff. That is like classical dissociative disorder, which comes from abuse. And she very possibly, like I said, could have been abused herself growing up in this. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that is a possibility. Because there's so many things with this case that it just kind of points the arrows things. And um, a huge thing for me that makes me think that there are definitely spiritual forces at work, and possibly even higher. I mean, on the earth, working even. I mean, yes, spiritual beings running things, but that she's got ties somehow, or somebody that orchestrated this has ties, because when the day that all this happened, when he was standing in his neighbor's house and he was standing there and you could tell he was freaking out, because I can tell you his plans did not go as he wanted them to go at all. And there was somebody else in that house. I personally believe that he got those keys out of the car, out of the corner thing of the car when he went in the garage, because I think he left the keys there because I think that NK, while he was finishing up what he was finishing up, I think she was let in the house or went back to the house possibly because she had dark brown hair, was about the same build as Shanann. She could have gone in that garage, put on a pair of sunglasses, um, and pulled out of there and waved at a couple of neighbors and took Shanann's phone, which is why I believe it was also left there at the house. And, you know, it was all stuck in one place. And he went and grabbed something out of that car and he stuck it inside of the cushions of the couch. And I think all that stuff was left there for her because I believe the plan was for her to get in the car in the garage and back out of there and leave the wedding band by the thing and make it look like she just left. And if there's no body, then basically they don't have a case. And truly, I think he was so under the influence of all of this, like in the Manson situation. Manson didn't kill anybody himself, but he had a heavy influence over the people who went out and did that by the use of drugs, pharmakeia, by the use of just constant manipulation. And I think that she was constantly manipulating him, pulling him out and pulling him in, throwing him out, pulling him in, throwing him out, pulling him in. It's just head games. And listen, I'm not taking up for him because I think he's a piece of crap because of the things that he was doing anyway. But there's a thing called soul ties, and you can be infected like a sexually transmitted disease almost by demons. And I call it a spiritually transmitted disease because that's almost exactly what it is. And I do believe that because he cheated on his marriage and he opened that door, and because of what she was involved of on the dark side, that just opened the door for the enemy to come right in and just kill, steal, and destroy, because that's what he says he comes to do: kill, steal, and destroy. And what did he do in this family? He killed, he stole, and he destroyed. He killed a wife and 3 children. He stole a life from Chris Watts and their families, Shanann's family and his parents and his family. You know, their life is hijacked, all of them. Their life will never be the same again. And it's nothing they had control over. Then, on top of that, we've got the fact that um, it did not matter to her the fact that those children would be affected. And also, she is such a liar when she says that she did not know that Shanann was pregnant. That is such a lie because it was all over the videos. And I'm just going to tell you, which woman of you out there that watches this, be honest. If you're having an affair, okay, and a man is still married and his wife is that public and on Facebook every day, literally like almost every day, putting every aspect of their life, I can promise you that she may have used somebody else's email. She may have even gone under another gone to another computer. I don't know, but I can tell you she has watched those videos. I mean, what woman wouldn't? If you're supposedly in love or in lust with a man and you think, and this is what he's telling you, supposedly, oh, well, I'm sleeping in the basement. There's nothing between us. We're not sleeping together, this, that, and the other. You know, aren't you going to get on Facebook and look to see what's really going on in their life? Like, is she saying anything like our marriage is over? Is she saying anything like this going along with what he's saying? Well, if you did that, then you can look and see that she is pregnant because she was showing. Also, she had the video that actually came out and said, "Hey, we're pregnant." And then for her to say, about all the first. Oh, I had to be the first with this, the first with that. I wanted to be the first. You've had all these first with Shanann. babies and marriage and this and that. I'm not going to get any first. And he reassured her that they'll have plenty of first in one of the cards that he wrote her. Um, and she said, I could give you a son, or I wanted to be the one to give you a son, or something to that effect, which tells me that she knew that Shanann was pregnant with a boy. And I don't know if anybody can type or text because I'm not seeing any of the comments. So if anybody's commenting and I'm not responding, it's because I'm not seeing them. And um, somebody told me that my buffering was a little bit off. So I don't know if y'all can even respond or whatever. I hope you can. But there's just so many layers to this. It's like an onion that you got to peel back layer after layer after layer. And the more you get into it, the more you cry because it's just like, what? I mean, it's like a rabbit hole that you just have to go in and burrow down into. And it's like, and then you have to back out because you're like, I don't even want to go down that hole. I don't even want to go chase that trail. So, I just had to get on here because I wanted to, first of all, you know, expose the fact that things are not always as they appear. I don't think this is just a case of a man that just was a complete jerk and, had an affair and killed his wife, like, say, what was that police officer? I forget his name. That killed his first wife, and then his next wife came up missing, and I think even was there a third one? I can't remember. But he was a cop, and they made a movie about him. Um, but I can't remember his name. But he was such a narcissist whenever they did all these interviews with him on TV, and they made a movie about him, like I said. And like this guy just didn't act like that. He honestly seemed kind of stupid, but according to his IQ, he's not stupid. So like he was so just I think off guard, and honestly when he says that he doesn't remember some of the things that went on or he's in and out and foggy about them, that's probably true, because I think that he wasn't the only one running that boat when all this happened. And I also know that he did not do this alone. It is impossible. He did not have enough time to go to kill Shanann, both of those girls, load them up in his truck where people can't see, pulling his wife, even in the garage with the door open, like just dragging her in the garage. Personally, I think somebody was in the back with another vehicle and they went out in the back way with her. And I think that's why the dogs may have alerted downstairs, possibly because there was something that went on with that. And those kids could have even been killed earlier than that, and maybe stuffed in the freezer down there. I don't know. Maybe that's why those dogs alerted. Like I said, some of this is just speculation because there's just so many weird things, and I think that they've let so many things be released about this case that has never been released with other cases. And I think that there's a reason for it. And there's so much symbolism if you go back and look, if you know what to look for. It's just crazy. I mean, even down to the numbers of the houses and just things like interesting. Um, and the way that this coincides with that particular occultic ritual that they do, which was like right down the street from the house that, and from where she was and where her cell phone was pinging and all that stuff. And I'm just curious, like, where is she? Like, how is she just gone and just like vanished off the face of the earth? I mean, nobody can do, even people with money. You know what I'm saying? Like, people with money try to vanish and they get found. So I'm just curious, like, who is covering for her because she is completely MIA. And like either they're watching her because they think she did have something to do with it, or like she does literally have some people in her pocket and she can hide, and or they're covering her because there's just no way, there's no possible way that that girl that just happened to be hired by an oil company in Colorado could hide from everyone. The whole daggum world is looking for her. You know what I'm saying? Come on. And like I said, it could have been an alias all along. I told you what Nikki stood for. So, and whenever he was talking about her and he spoke about her being in like the proverbs about the temptress and all that, that calls out for the guy. And and I'm gonna say something else before I get off. I think the reason that he's gone overboard about the horrible atrocities he did to his children, because I think that he has some kind of crazy love spell over him. First of all, and like I said, I still think he was possessed and possibly, probably still is. Not very many people do deliverance these days. I do. I do. And there are a lot of people, around my um area in my church. Of course they do, but even not everybody in my church even probably believes in that. And I think that that's why the enemy has been able to gain so much ground, is because we kind of stopped believing that he was real, and that's the biggest joke he has played on humanity, is the fact of he's not real. So therefore he can pull you in, because like I said, if you don't belong to the one true God, you by default are a child of Satan. I mean, that's the way it works. And like, that's not my rules. So if you don't agree with it or whatever, you can take that up with the big guy upstairs, not me. So, I hope this gave you some information tonight. There's so much more than this. It's just so deep and heavy, and really, you can only take it in doses. Um, because it, I mean, it is really disgusting. Some of the things that these occultic um people get into. It's just like I don't even want to talk about it. It's so gross. And I would suggest that people just go do their own research, because if you hear it from somebody, then that's great. But if you find through your own research that these things are real, then that's just not just taking what somebody else said for face value, because I don't do that. I do my own research. I'm not going to take what anybody says just for face value. I don't care who they are. So I mean, except for the Lord. I mean, but everybody else, what I'm saying, you need to check up, and you need to, make sure what they're saying lines up with the truth. So, anyway, well, I just wanted to make this tonight because a couple people have been asking me about the Freemasonry and the fact of my ties with that and my family ties with that, and my experience that I had talked about, which I thank the Lord that my other side of the family, my grandmother was a Christian, and she prayed for me, and I believe that her prayers covered me for a long time, a long, long time, until I myself found the Lord at age 27. And like I said, I was still a long time after that, still under the same curse of that my family was involved in, until I actually found out that there was such a thing. And God is good, and He will definitely deliver you. You are never too far gone. I don't care if you're a Freemason yourself, if you're in the Eastern Star yourself, if you've taken these oaths, if you're even a practicing witch, if whatever you've done, it doesn't matter. Like, even Christopher Watts, I know you don't want to hear this, but even he can be redeemed. He's saying that he's a Christian now and he's found salvation. I don't know. That's between him and the Lord, because I can't decide that. Only God can, make that call. But I will say this, it's possible, because as long as we're alive, we're redeemable. As long as we have not grieved the Holy Spirit, we're redeemable. Look how many people in the Bible that Paul killed before he became Paul. You know, look how many people he killed, Christians at that, who are, God's children, and he killed them. And, God, he redeemed him. So, like, nobody is too far gone. So, um, I know it's hard to pray for him, trust me. Um, and I haven't done it. I'm not gonna lie. I should be doing it, but I haven't, and maybe I need to. But because if Shanann's parents could honestly ask for his life to be spared and not get the death penalty, that is amazing to me. And I know they're practicing Catholics and all that, but like I said, I don't think that the people in the Catholic Church are bad. I don't think that they understand, like, what goes on in the higher levels, like in the Roman Catholic Church and in the Vatican and in the higher ups. But I'm just gonna say that there's idolatry, there's sexual abuse, there's just so much surrounding the Catholic Church. And the weird thing is that people just automatically assume that if you're a Christian, that you're Catholic, if they're from the world, I'm saying. And that is so far from the truth because it's just the opposite. Because no, I'm not saying if you're Catholic, you can't be Christian, but I'm saying that not every Catholic is Christian because the word Catholic actually means universal. So, which that's what's forming right now under Pope Francis is a universal religion, one world order, one world religion, one world political system. It's the beast system that's forming, and I believe personally that the Pope has a lot to do with that. And I did have a dream about that, and you can look on my channel. It's called Pope Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, I think. But it was a dream I had and it was very vivid. But anyway. All right, well, I'm gonna get off and go to bed because I'm really tired. I have been up since like 4:30 or 5 a.m. this morning, and um my tooth has been hurting, so I haven't had a very fun day. So I'm about to call it a night. So I hope you guys join me again. Maybe I'll get on here another night and try to get in a little bit more in detail, about the way that I was trying to relate, that Manson went to prison forever, never got out, but his followers that actually killed the people, you know what I'm saying? Like they got out of prison. Like all of them got out of prison, I believe. I don't think any of them actually stayed in prison. Maybe one might have died in there, but other than that, I think they mostly all got out. And um they did the most atrocious things. I mean, honestly, like, go read the stuff that happened to these people, okay? And the reason and there was a calling card with that too, just like with the Watts case with the Manson and Tate and La Bianca murders. Same thing. There was a calling card. Rosemary's Baby, right? Roman Polanski. There's always a sacrifice, okay? She was killed also during the time of this particular ritual that we've been talking about tonight. And she was also pregnant. And I don't think that's a coincidence because of the way that Manson and Susan Atkins, and which was one of his like main people, said that squeaky girl, um, that she was already involved, and there's pictures of her actually with Anton LaVey, who is the leader for the Church of Satan, and um, she was already involved with that. I think before she even met Manson. So like I think that's how he even got like what I'm saying, like tied up with these people in San Francisco that were doing all these occult rituals in that house that I told you about. Um so look that up if you don't believe me. I mean, it's almost like I just can't even believe all these connections. Like I told you, the Bobby Beaujolais, the one that was with the Mansons and he killed that drug dealer or whatever. Um, he said that Charles Manson told him to do it. Now, whether he did or did not tell him to do it, I don't know. But this is what I'm saying. If Charles Manson went to jail for his whole entire life because a druggie, which he was an occultist and a druggie, Bobby Bouchelet was. I'm not saying he wasn't maybe a likable person, but I'm just telling you what he was. And if the state or if they took the word of a druggie that says Charles Manson told him to do that. Now Bobby went to prison, he did, but I'm talking about the other people in the Manson family. They turned state's evidence on Manson. They told that everything that he did to tell them what to do or whatever, but it was all word of mouth. What they said that he said, they had no proof. So what I'm trying to say with this is why is this woman not being brought up on charges or at least like being heavily scrutinized and investigated because I've listened to those tapes and those interviews, and she was not investigated and she was not held to the same flames that Manson was. And truthfully, okay, the thing I was talking about with Manson was the next day they went and killed that Rosemary LaBianca, and that was a calling card, the name Rosemary, because of Roman Polanski. Listen, Manson was crazy. I'll give you that. He was crazy, 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 crazy. But he admitted what happened in the Tate murders. He said, "Look at Roman Polanski," and we can see Roman Polanski is a pedophile. He already got in trouble for molesting and raping a young girl of 12 a long time ago, which is why he fled the country to start with. And then he came back, and now more charges in the last month have come up about him. Trust me, this man is wicked and disgusting, and he will get what's coming to him. And probably sooner than later. All this house of cards is tumbling down, and I really believe that all this stuff is going to be brought to light. It's already coming to light, and it's going to continue. So anyway, really, this time I'm getting off. So I'll talk to you guys later, and I appreciate you joining me tonight and hanging out for an hour and 16 minutes for a video that was supposed to be about 30. You're a good group of friends. All right, love you guys. Bye.